Good afternoon, everyone. It is Angie once again for another edition of After School STEM. It is a fantastic busy Thursday here at the Science Center. The weather is not, I think it's great, but the weather's not great for playing outside, so that means it's a fabulous day to be at the Science Center. So you might be able to hear it's a little bit noisy, but that's great. Come on over, have a seat if you want to check us out. Earlier this week, yesterday in fact, we read a few books about birds, and one of the books that we read was called Are You My Mama? And it's about a little bird who hatches from his egg, and he jumps out of the nest and immediately figures out, like, oops, I don't know where my mom is, I don't know who my mom is, and so he goes and asks all of the people that he sees on his little journey whether or not they're his mom. And I thought that was kind of interesting because that is similar to Oswald's story. So when Oswald was a baby, when he was a very young owlet, he was found on the ground by some humans. Some humans were probably meant no harm, had the best of intentions, but they saw this little baby bird on the ground and they thought, we're gonna have a pet owl. And there's two big problems with that. The first one is that, generally speaking, wild animals make terrible pets. They're messy, they eat weird stuff. When they get close to adulthood, they usually become territorial, which can lead to being extra messy or even maybe a little bit mean and destructive. The other big problem is that in the United States, we have a whole host of laws and rules and permits that are in place to kind of help make sure that wild animals stay wild. So to have possession of an owl or a wild bird, you have to have a bunch of training and some permits. Anyway, a wildlife rehabilitator heard about Oswald just sort of living at someone's house, and the rehabber let people know, hey, it's not very healthy for the bird, and this is how much trouble you could potentially get into if the authorities ever find out about this owl. And so the people who had him went, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, we didn't realize, and they gave Oswald to the rehabilitator, at which point the rehabilitator tried to get Oswald strong and healthy and ready to be released into the wild. Unfortunately, by the time that Oswald was strong and healthy and ready to be released, he had spent too much time as a young bird hanging out with humans and not with other owls. That's right. And so Oswald never learned how to act like an owl, how to think like an owl, or how to behave like an owl. And so, even though Oswald is physically healthy, he can fly, he can hear, he can see, he can do all those things, he isn't able to survive in the wild because he doesn't understand how to hunt, or how to find a place to live, or defend his territory, find a girlfriend, all those sorts of things. And so Oswald's what we call an imprint. All right. Do you guys have any questions about Oswald or great horned owls or anything at all in general? How long has Oswald been here? That's a great question. He came to the Science Center in 2009. So let's see, that's about 12 years. He was born in the year 2000. So this spring would have been his 21st birthday. And great horned owls can live anywhere. At least in captivity, they can live up to 15, 20, 25 years. In the wild, it's a lot shorter, just because living in the wild is very difficult. You got to worry about food and predators and all those sorts of things. And so that's why a wild bird probably wouldn't live so long. Right. Oswald was born in Arizona, and raptors, or owls, who are born in cold climates, tend to be bigger than those who are born in warm climates. Also, when it comes to owls, girls tend to be bigger than boys. So because Oswald is a boy, who was born where it's warm, he's actually a really small great horned owl. A female great horned owl that's from Minnesota is probably going to sit around this big. So if you're looking at him going, oh, that's a tiny little owl, he is kind of small. Yeah. Good question.
What's their normal food source?
Normally, like in the wild, they would be looking for little rodents. So if you can think of a small animal that scurries along the forest floor, an owl would probably go for it. One of their favorite foods is actually skunk, because, fun fact, owls can't smell. And so a skunk's biggest defense is that stinky spray. And it's so confident, that skunk, that the spray is going to work, they don't even bother hiding, right? They have those big, bright yellow stripes, or white stripes. And those stripes are basically a signal to potential predators or anybody that wants to mess with them. Hey, don't even try it, because if you do, I'm going to make you regret it. But an owl can't smell, and so that defense is kind of useless. So those stripes, instead of being a warning, are really more like, come and get it, here I am. So, yeah, wild owls will eat a lot of skunk. Here at the Science Center, for some reason, through captivity, he just lost his taste for mice and rodents. So if we give him mice, he usually won't eat them. He prefers quail. And so we get them from a farmer down in southern Minnesota. And so actually all of our raptors get quail. Are you hungry?
Wild, what would they live in? Where would they be? What would their
Yeah, really great question. So in the wild, great horned owls generally don't actually make their own nests. They like to kick other animals out of their nests. So they're, you tell them, sir. So they will like find abandoned squirrel nests. They've been known to sort of attempt to harass like crows and things like that. So they're kind of lazy. They're kind of bullies. They like other people's hard work.
So, do like parent owls like teach the babies how to do things like hunting? Do they like go out and go flying with mom and dad and learn how to catch a bull?
So they don't like team hunt like that. You know, that's a really good question. I'm not really sure exactly how they teach each other. But yeah, it is a little bit of like watch and learn. So like mom and dad will go out and hunt. Actually, it'll be one or the other. Great horned owls will switch back and forth. And also great horned owls tend to mate for life. And so the same parents will return every year. Not all great horned owls migrate, so some will actually hang out in their home territory year round.
How long do they stay with their parents?
Question. Offhand, most young birds are out of their nest within less than 6 months. 3 to 5 is a pretty good average for a small bird.
So if he's from Arizona, why is he here now? Why is he not still down? How that happened?
So there was a wildlife rehabilitator who was stationed in Arizona. That was his home base, and I don't know what his connection to Bemidji is, but when he was getting ready to retire, he came up here with the Headwaters Science Center and sort of helped us set up our enclosures, and he gave us these 2 birds and kind of gave us all the rundown. So I'm not sure what his connection to Bemidji was, but yeah, it was basically
Came with the rehabber though?
Yep, he gave them to us, kind of trained the original folks who then Pat Oldham and Chris Tolman. Amy Granlund is still with us, still hanging out, still helping. Yeah.
Just something about migratory, what is the range then? So they don't necessarily stay around here.
For most of them will, maybe not most, but it's kind of a toss-up whether or not they're going to. These are actually a really, really common bird. So we see them way up into Canada, all the way down into like Central America. They're really widespread all over North America.
So if they leave here, Everyone to where it's warm.
Probably just further south where there's ample food. Because they have such good hearing, they're able to hear their prey under the snow and things like that. But, you know, natural cycles that affect their prey will affect them too. So, you know, an owl that usually stays in Minnesota year round, if it's a bad year, that owl might say, well, there's not enough to eat. I'm going to head somewhere else for the summer or for the winter. Sorry, buddy. Do they have any predators? Excellent question. When they're babies, before they are fledged, lots and lots and lots of stuff will eat them. Other raptors, other owls, larger mammals. They're very, very vulnerable as babies. But once the great horned owl, once they hit a year old, once they're like on their own, really their only predator is going to be people and possibly like house cats that are just like out left to roam. Otherwise, these animals are super tough. Like, they've been called tigers of the North Woods just because they're so bold, so brazen. You ever look up eagle cams, like where they put a camera over the nest? There's one of a pair of great horned owls who are bullying a single bald eagle parent to try to kick them out of the nest so they can have that nest. And so a bald eagle up close is, I don't know, about that big. And, you know, most birds wouldn't even think about, you know, pestering something that much larger. But great horned owls are just like, I'm bad and I know it, and I will mess with whoever I want to mess with. So once they hit full grown, they're pretty safe, other than people. Humans are always throwing a wrench into things. Good question. Any others? All right then. Well, okay.
Does he ever get to like fly?
So the question was, does he ever get to fly? And so he's not trained for free flight. It is possible to train a raptor to fly, and then with a signal they'll come back. He is not that well trained. But his enclosure, his mews, is big enough for him to fly around in. So he can, you know, he's not going to be taking massive laps or anything, but he gets to use his wings, he gets to stretch them out. All right, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us for another edition of Afternoon Science STEM activities. We're open 7 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 9:30 to 5, and Sundays 1 to 5. So please come check us out on this wonderful long weekend. Stay warm, dry.